Shall we open with a prayer? I will do that. I will. Okay. Everybody will take a nice deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Take a second one in through your nose, out through your mouth. And one more to help us all center. Mother, Father, God, thank you for this beautiful day, at least it is here, for being with us in our circle of friends. Bless each person here today. Give them a beautiful week. Mother Mary, we need to place our former sister and Bishop Yvonne in your house with her son. He has moved 4 states away from her and she is worried sick. So if everybody could pray for her, I know putting her in Mother Mary's house will protect her and help her, but we can add our little prayers. So thank you all for that, and so be it. Okay, Cheryl, you're on.
Yvonne was with us many years ago when we first started out.
Yeah.
Yes, she was.
Yeah. The poem that Paula asked me to read, I was doing a class in Oregon some years back, and the women there all started crying. They didn't know how to reach their kids, that they didn't know what to do. You know, it was that time where everything out in the world was dancing or prancing or singing or whatever. People were trying to find themselves. And so I went downstairs at my daughter. Remember Doreen? Do you remember Doreen Pearson?
No.
She that was her house. And so I came back upstairs, and this is the poem that I wrote. My child, somewhere back in time, we get lost. Patterns are formed, distorted memories are stored. Our lives become directed by these past remembrances. We lose our essence. That divine spark that we came in with at birth dims and fades, creating veils of illusion in our psyche to hide that misery, the misery of worthlessness, abandonment, rejection, pain, hiding behind the illusory masks we wear to hide our silent screams. Vacant stares into life's mirror, afraid and unable to see the images there. At some point, we begin to live and recreate those memories as fact, emulating the expectations, the beliefs of our parents and society, repeating unhealthy patterns, mouthing their innuendos. Legacies built on fear, worthlessness, abandonment, rage, rejection. Monuments erected and dedicated to the entrapment of the human soul. Mirroring their fears, we begin to pass them down to our own loving children. My child, for the time you needed me and I was not there, forgive me. For not being able to express my love, to hug or hold you, forgive me. For the times you felt I abandoned or rejected you, forgive me. For not listening, hearing, or understanding your needs, forgive me. For being too busy with my stuff and not honoring yours, forgive me. For the silent tears you shed that I was never able to wipe, forgive me. For the loudness and inner anger of my own injured soul, forgive me. For being the child when you needed a mother to hold you, forgive me. For denying your lifestyles, wanting yours to fit in with mine, forgive me. For expectations or demands of you that were too difficult, forgive me. For the times I have injured you by thought, word, or deed, forgive me. For being caught up in my own fears and not seeing yours, forgive me. For secrets kept behind closed doors and never sharing them, forgive me. For lies meant to shield you when they were my shields, forgive me. For comparing you to another, not valuing your uniqueness, forgive me. For not setting good examples or healthy guidelines for you, forgive me. Child of my heart, know that I love you wholly and unconditionally. The totality of love and tremendous joy I experienced when first I held you in my arms, sealed you in my heart forever. I was overwhelmed and awed by your perfection. I was grateful to God for you then. I am grateful to God for you now. I rocked and sang to you the love songs of a mother. This poem is once again my love song to you. Forgive me, there is no need to carry my burdens any longer. Free yourself. Create, sing, and dance your own life song. Then perhaps I can free and forgive myself.
Paula, you're muted.
Pardon me?
Paula is muted.
I'm talking to nothing here.
Okay.
And
We're
sounded
witnessing.
really good.
Thought so, yeah. No, how many mothers would love to share something like that with their
Yeah.
children? How many mothers get the chance to share what they really feel with their children? I'm not a mother. It's easier for me to talk to my nieces and nephews because they're not mine. But my conversations with my own mother could never have been that tender, that honest. The only honest time was just before she passed over into spirit. She just looked at me and said, I can't do this anymore. I know you're a nurse and you'll understand. That's the most honest my mother ever could have been with me. So to have that poem, I think it should be in every mother's repertoire. And you mothers, please share how you feel about that.
That's a wonderful, I'm not a mother, but that's an incredible Mother's Day piece. I looked at it a little differently. I had two mothers, a birth mother and an adopted mother, and I knew each fairly well. They were the total opposites of one was fundamentalist Christian, one was a rebel rouser and beer drinking, alcoholic barmaid kind of thing. And they each were very different, but I listened to that poem and I had me thinking of each mother being attributed to each. Forgive me, forgive one for this and one for that. But as a combination, it would be a really solid, if both motherhoods were combined, would be a really solid motherhood, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm not making sense today.
Thank you, Kevin. I've kind of witnessed those feelings when my kids talk about their childhood experience, and I feel that maybe I was misrepresented or misrepresenting my intention. And so they have hurts and pains and memories that, you know, they felt like I abandoned them on something. And I said, is that what you're thinking? Because then I would try to correct it. But then we were in this conversation. It's like, I didn't really acknowledge their feelings. And so to let them have their experience, I think is important. And I think the poem, the way I heard it, was more about, you know, allowing me to go through my ineffective parenting style and let that go and say, I did a good job anyway, right?
I think too, some famous psychologist said it's not how you actually raise the child, it's how the child perceived
Mm-hmm.
he or she was raised.
Yeah.
And having come from a huge family, every one of us has a different perception of what went on in that family.
Yeah.
You know, some of us, and we all had different roles. You know, there were the scapegoats, there was the know-it-all, that was me. There was the drunk, there was the anger, the one who carried the family anger. So each child that you talk to is going to have a different story for you. But Shirley's poem, I think, covers almost all of that
Yeah.
that they could come at you with. And
Yeah.
that's what's so beautiful about it. And she's asking forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And how can a child say no to that? Well, yes, some children could because they're too busy wrapped up in their anger and their resentment. But I think if children listened to it and heard the words, they would understand that mothers are not perfect. They're just human beings like everybody else. And they learned what they know from somebody else. And some of them improved on it, some of them didn't. Um, but I think it's every child's job, if you will, to think about what their parents' deficits were and what caused those deficits and try to forgive because they were only human and they were only following the pattern that they knew. And not all their patterns were good. Yes, it was up to them to change those patterns, but in my parents' age, that was not done.
There's
Oh,
what parents know, and there's what people are capable of too. I mean,
Very
my
good.
father passed away with frontal temporal lobe dystrophy and potentially Lewy body dementia. And like, you know, he wasn't capable of some things, you know, even at the end. And then like, what were the things that were impacting him, you know, before that started to you know, impact his mind, that were limitations. So, and then it makes me think of my sister too. She has, you know, these limitations in her world and like what she's capable of. And you know, she's a mom who I'm sure her children, you know, have to think about forgiveness and all of that. So I just think it's not only what people choose to do, sometimes they're just not capable.
I also think that, you know, we grow up hearing that it's important to forgive. And I'm not necessarily debating that, but I think for me, it's a very organic, individualized experience. And I have come very organically to forgiveness with my mother, and it took what it took. You know, I have a cousin who, she's a little bit older than me, and the way we're related is through her mother, and it was her father who used to beat her with a belt, and you know, both of her parents are gone. And when I talk to her about it, I always say, you know, your dad, I don't know why sometimes we focus on the badness of one parent and we elevate the other parent. It's just our way of coping. I think it's just the grief. But I said, well, if you can forgive your dad, why can't you forgive Auntie Jeanette, your mother? And she said, well, I'm still working on it. And I said, well, that's all there is. You've either gotten there or you're in the process of getting there. So I'm glad you're working on it. And my mother died when I was 25 years old. So I've done, and I always tell people that you can have the experience of forgiveness and the experience of feeling blessed, even, long after my experiences left the earth, right? So not to panic, but just really trust the process and let it be what it is. For me, that's what works. But anyway, that was thank you for that reading. And I'll just add, I'll just share as a mother, my daughter, every once in a while, she'll say something and I'll say to her, that sounds like maybe it belongs to me or your dad. You should give that back to us, honey. So we talk about, we did the best we could and we were hurt and we passed on those family of origin traumas, and, some of that belongs to me. So bring it on, sister.
I think a big aspect of forgiveness is understanding. When you're able to understand, okay, the background, the influences, their hurt, whatever, and when you understand that, sometimes it goes a long way in helping you to forgive.
Maybe not really fully understanding it because you may not agree with it at all. And so just acknowledging that that's the difference. You meet them where they are as opposed to trying to understand it necessarily.
Yeah. Well, understanding is the partial way there kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It may not totally answer every question.
Yeah.
And understanding comes in many guises too. I was always looking to adopt a new mother, and I have had many, and Shirley is one of them. And it worked for me because from what I didn't feel I was getting from my own mother, I got from other people's mothers, which helped me actually survive my life. But it also helped me learn that my parents, especially my mother, was limited because of what happened in her life that we didn't find out till after she had crossed over. But through a lot of my studies, I've taken a lot of psych courses and stuff. I realized that she could only pass the lessons that she had learned the way she learned them because she was not brave enough to change. Also, she had 7 children. She didn't have time to think about changing.
Yeah.
And as I see my sisters, most of my sisters have 1 or 2 kids and they're driving them nuts. So it's like, imagine having 7. I can't imagine having 7 children. Well, I did have 7 children. I'm the oldest, but I can't, sometimes it's hard to imagine what she was going through. And as I grew up and took care of the kids, she went back to work, I think out of self-defense, because she needed to get away from us and our scribble squabbles and silliness and childhood nonsense. And looking back, I don't blame her. I'd have been on the pill long before she even thought about not having any more kids.
Wow.
But again,
Well, watching my daughters now, watching my children, and the things that they've chosen for their life, like my daughter Patty, she was a teacher, but then she became like the nurse that the girls or the boys that cut themselves and everything would go down and she would help them. And now she's been out of doing that. So she's gone to court for kids to help them through to the court. So I'm watching these. My daughter Gail works with kids on the spectrum always. And Jane gets kids into college. But I could see the things that are so beautiful about them that they're just put through into their lives. And it's just so marvelous. And I'm very happy and I'm very grateful for them. So
Thanks for
Deb, you're
sharing.
awful quiet.
Huh?
I said, Deb, you're awful quiet.
Yeah, I grew up in a very abusive house, but I know it wasn't necessarily their fault. I've come to realize that they grew up in their own abusive households. The stories my father, he was an alcoholic, but the stories he would tell about his father beating him with a leather belt. He ran away, he was born in 1915. He ran away from home when he was 14 years old, hopped a freight train to Florida, spent I don't know how many summers down there in the stables as a stable boy at the racetracks, and that forced him to grow up, too young, with all the grown men down there. That's why he became an alcoholic, because he grew up too fast down there. And I don't know. Then he was abusive when he came back. And my mother was the oldest of six, so she had to take care of all the younger ones. And I I can only I imagine she probably was abused too, and then just the cycle went on and on and on. I was determined that I was going to break the cycle, and I did. So I wasn't going to keep it going. No, I've seen my cousins though, and they've kept it going, and with their own kids, it's like, oh no, we're not doing that. And it's like you just can't. With some people, you just can't make them see what they're doing, and they have to see it for themselves. Glad I broke it.
Good for you. That takes a lot of strength.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to put up with a 2-year-old and you're on your own. It's like, my daughter-in-law, I finally found out why she's going to therapy. My son told me yesterday. I thought it was because she was just depressed from work. It turns out, I guess, it was between her and her mother and things that went on. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. I've only met her mother a few times, and I didn't realize that there was childhood trauma that she went through. So it's like, okay, didn't realize that. So
Why would you? People hide it well.
yeah, I've only met her parents a few times because they're up in New Hampshire too. So now I know.
But you're being a good mother-in-law, helping her out through her trauma.
Yeah, I don't know when she's going to be. I don't know when she's got to stay with me for I don't know how long, because she's got to go to treatment at a hospital down here eventually. So that's okay. It'll either make it or break it with so we'll see how that goes.
Well, you can give her good mothering, which she obviously needs.
Yes, and she doesn't cook, so this should be interesting.
Okay.
And she's a vegetarian too, so she's very fussy. Can't take her to McDonald's. No.
It's interesting because young people these days have a much different perspective on their health and their diet. We were visiting with Charlie and Bobby, and they had their grands and great grands, and he asked me to pick up egg McMuffins to bring to the family. And so I brought the junk food to them, and the kids wouldn't eat it. It was just the adults, those of us that grew up on fast food, that ate them.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, she's a vegetarian. So my son, in solidarity, when they're together, he'll be vegetarian too. But like if he comes down here, oh yeah, he'll have a bacon cheeseburger.
Yeah.
That's okay. We'll make do. So
So
my dogs are okay with her. So that's all.
I missed it earlier. Was the poem something that you wrote, Shirley? Shirley?
Yeah.
Or yeah, okay. What was your inspiration for that? When did that happen?
Because I was a single mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the things that I saw that I was doing at one point helped me in some way. I mean, when I started doing poetry or when I started doing the classes I was doing, it kind of tore away the old wallpaper, so to speak. And I began to see things that, and then the more that I became myself in so many words, the more it let my family become who they are also, and understanding one another. And everybody's got this quirk or that quirk or that quirk, but we all know it. And when we're together, we'll say, "Oh, there she goes again," but in jest, that there's nothing coming from a sore place or anything anymore. So they'll just say, "Hey, mom," and I'll say, "Oh, okay." And then I'll change the subject. But yeah, I've learned as much from them as they have ever learned from me, even more, even more. So I've been blessed that way.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, but thank you. Yeah. We all have our, we all have our history. We all have our things, and that's why we're drawn to movies that we're drawn to books that we're drawn to anything. And then sometimes you just look at it and you say, "Oh my gosh," and they're telling my story. And so sometimes when you're reading a book, sometimes it's healing because you're reading your story in a sense by that book. So anyway, yeah.
And what is your mantra, Paula, from the chapter in your book? Paula wrote in her book, she's got this mantra of it no longer serves.
It no longer serves me. Yes,
Yeah.
leave
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Or you no longer serve me. When one of those thoughts comes up.
Yeah.
When I start feeling guilty about something. And I feel guilty not being a mother. I know that sounds weird, but everybody through my career has told me what a great mother I am because I mother everybody on my staff, whether they want it or not.
Yeah.
But I came to the conclusion that's the kind of mother I'm supposed to be. I am a universal mother, and not meant to spend my time with one or two that belong to me that came from my womb. And my joke is, well, it works better this way because I don't change diapers and I don't take anybody home. But that's to heal my pain, because it does hurt. But again, if I'm honest, and this is not in my book, if I'm honest, I really chose not to have children because I did not want to be a mother like my mother. Because I did not feel she was a good mother. She was the best mother she could be, but that wasn't good enough for me. I have a little perfectionist in me. But I did not want to bring another child of an alcoholic into the world because I was married to a drunk. And I didn't think the world needed another one of those. There were enough of them out there for me to co-mother through the rest of my life, which I have. And honestly, I was able to realize that because of the surgery I had when I was 16, I always knew when I ovulated and I always picked a fight during that week. So part of me did not want that responsibility. Call me a coward. Yeah, I was. But I didn't want to do that to the world. I figured there was enough out there I could take care of without because I was really terrified that I would be an awful mother. And again, it's easier to be a good mother to other people's children, I think. She was. At least that's a conclusion I've come to in 74 years. I admire anybody who's brave enough to be a mother in this world. You know, and my one of my oldest nieces just gave birth to her first child, and I pray for her every day because this world ain't easy. And you know, part of the time I'm glad I didn't do it. Part of the time I'm sad that I was coward. But it's who I am and what I do. And again, I don't change many diapers. So, although in my field of geriatrics, I did.
You got it on the other side.
They were just bigger diapers. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we all break the cycle in different ways. You know, you theoretically did it by not having children, and Deb, you did it another way, and each way is as valid for each of you. But you know, there may be a lot of us who are cycle breakers in our own way. And you know, try not to feel guilty about that or hesitant. You know, it's just what we have to do.
Good point, Kevin. Agreed.
And each child is very different. As Paula was saying, you know, all 7 have entirely different personalities. We had 4, same with my siblings. And then my kids were born by 2 different fathers and 5 years apart. So they didn't have the same upbringing either. And so they have an entirely different relationship with me and each other.
And thank God we are all separate. I can't imagine growing up with 7 of me under one roof. That would have taken more than 2 sets of parents.
Good point, Kev. Yeah.
Sometimes we find ourselves saying something we don't know where the heck it came from. And I'll look around and I said, where the heck did that come from? But, you know, we have a history of so many things, families, mothers, fathers, everything. And we place some of that stuff way back there. We don't know when, but somehow it makes its way forward. And we speak it or we do it. And I think that's what makes us change, hopefully, into the piece that we want to be.
Every bit of information is imprinted on us. You know, we're pretty well set by the time we're 8. And whatever you're going to grow up to be is pretty well established in a lot of children by the time they're 8. And, you know, then it's just a matter of where it's going to go from there. But, you know, that means we have to do our work, the really serious work, back before it's set, and hopefully do the right job.
Yeah, you're right. Kids are like sponges, you know, and little pitchers have big ears. They don't miss a bloody thing.
Well, I now have 6 mothers. Yeah, I have 6 mothers.
And I've met a few.
You met a few, so you
I've
know.
met a few, yeah.
Yeah. So
they were always telling their mother what she should be doing. Yes.
yeah.
But it's because they care.
Yeah. I'm very
Because
fortunate.
I think they
Thank
realize
God they did.
they're fortunate to have had you for a mother,
Well,
from what I've heard from them.
that's still locked in a closet somewhere. Yeah. No. I've learned more from them, I think, than anything. They're really great human beings.
I
I
always
think we're
tell,
all, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, I always tell my daughter, you know, all the things you really love about me. And she'll say yes. And I'll say they're in you too. And I'll say, you know,
Yeah.
all the things you hate about me, some of those are in you too.
Look out, I'm in there. Well, my sisters have told me that when I'm giving them advice, I sound exactly like my mother, which irritates the heck out of me. But as I listened, they're right. Um, you know, we all have this Grimes look when we're
The look.
upset. With every single one of us wears glasses, and every single one of us, when we're upset, we do this. The dirty look. So yes, we do copy a lot of what, you know, was passed down, but we laugh about it and realize, well, we do own them genetically. It's just that's one of her better habits, so I'd rather inherit one of her better habits or hang on to one of their better habits, because my dad used to do that too. And so, you know, they are part of us. And I think, Sally, you're right. We need to forgive us even before we ask them to forgive us. We need to find a way to forgive us
Yes.
for what we done. Making amends is one of the things Al-Anon and AA both, and Laura will tell you this. Making amends is one of the big things, and it's apologizing or asking forgiveness to those people that you have intentionally or unintentionally harmed. And we don't think about that very often. But writing the book, I thought about what I have done to people to protect myself, pretty much. But there's a cute little story in the book about this nurse that I worked with for many years, and we loved each other dearly, but we didn't always agree. And we had this wingding one morning about one of our patients, and she was sure he was this, and I was sure he was this. And finally, she just left the office in a huff, and I just went back to my work. At the end of the day, she came in and said, "I forgive you for making me angry." And I was just like, I said, "Okay, thank you for your forgiveness." That's all I think to say. But it was honest, and it made our relationship so much better because we very rarely disagreed after that. We would sit and talk about why we felt this way about or that way, because we were dealing with dementia. But she helped me make better relationship with other nurses too, because I was used to nurses lying to me. It's what they do because we all cover our tracks. And to have her just smack me in the face with "I forgive you for making me angry" was like, huh? She said that? Really? Yeah, I guess I did contribute to her anger that morning, and she contributed to mine too. But it was just it just always stuck with me, and that was 20 years ago that happened, you know, but it's still with me because Mary Jane is a very special, incredible woman. And she raised 3 daughters that were children of her daughter, who got pregnant out of wedlock, and was a fabulous mother. So, but she was also in my face. You know, she was very honest, and she didn't let things go by. Um, so, you know, she was a good lesson. But again, we learn lessons from everybody,
Yes.
not just our parents. And we learn different kinds of love from everybody too, because every mother I found did love me in a different way, and taught me in a different way than the other mothers I adopted. And I'm still learning from Shirley. She's my new mother. Even though she's not old enough to be my mother, she still fits the bill. And I value my time with you, Cheryl. I really do. I am so blessed that you moved back to Connecticut. We stole you back from California. Yeah. And Shirley is actually making a big difference in the congregate living where she lives. She's spreading the awakening process through the staff, through the nursing staff, through the wait staff, the office staff, even the security guards are listening and changing because of Shirley's words. And she's amazing. That place is never going to be the same.
Well, you know, it's so funny. The book of poems that I shared some of them
Mhm.
at that time. This is 30 years ago. I wrote about people in a place like this, and I'm reading it now. But it seems like, yeah, it's yeah.
They need you. They really need you. And they're very nice people. I've met quite a few
They're
of
very
them.
nice. Yeah,
I go through the lobby and say hi to everybody.
yeah,
So they're all used to me now.
yeah.
But
Well,
you
one of the
know,
nurses this morning, she's gone back to nursing school. She wants to learn more and everything. And she said it's not enough. But the talks that we have had, she's just opening other doors for herself. So, and she's the one doing the work, you know. I mean, I could ask a question, but they have the answers
Mm.
sometimes, but they don't realize the answer is coming out until we repeat it. So, you know, we all have our journeys. Yep.
and you're part of theirs. You know, the security guard who used to hide behind his hair now combs his hair back and you can see his beautiful face
Yep.
just
And
from
he's on
listening
the
to.
third book. And on the
Is he on the third
book.
one? Oh,
Yep. Yep.
good. Good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, she's just amazing. It took her a while. She wasn't sure she wanted to be there at first. I know you'll admit that, Cheryl. But she's snuggled in and is well loved and well needed because
Well,
a
I
lot
have
of
friends like you coming to visit me every week. I have my cat
yes, she's
who's,
got a beautiful cat.
yeah, he thinks he's part of the family. He has to get into every conversation.
Oh yes.
So, but yeah, so I'm very fortunate, and I have my children around, and can't beat that. Paul, I'd like to take a moment just to thank everybody for letting me share my poem and everything. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. We
Thank
love when you
you.
share.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just the beginning, Cheryl. You got a lot to share.
Yeah.
And nobody knows that better than me. I got the pile.